statement, and we'll open up to questions.
Welcome everybody. Exciting day really to have you all here to kick off the season. We have been really spending a lot of time in the gym next door. Virtually all of our players have been in market for the involuntary workouts, mostly centered around player development, small group work, but just the energy in the gym has been at an all-time high. You guys know we brought in a lot of new staff members, but just to see the buy-in from the players and the work that is being done and the advancements that are being made, and just the attention to detail that's going on, it's been really, really exciting. So that'll catapult us into next week when we start practice on Tuesday and obviously media day on Monday. So fun times, and wanted to kind of start with getting all your questions answered. So welcome and thanks for being here.
Just want to clarify one thing. Voluntary workouts.
Yeah, sorry.
Voluntary.
It's a key word.
All right, good. Rob, I know you and JJ got a chance to go to Paris and see AD and LeBron, and I just wondered, seeing that, like entering this season, how does that color your expectations for them, what you need around them, and just the overall event and what impact it made?
Yeah, I mean, it felt historic to be at the games, to see LeBron and AD play over there. It was a great time for us just to be in Paris, having some dinners, talking about the season, getting with LeBron and AD, and the semifinal game and then the gold medal game were two of the great basketball games to have witnessed. And it was really great for us to see LeBron and AD playing at such a high level with other great players and just having fun. You could just tell there was an exuberant joy in the way they played and came together. Great moment for our country, and basketball at its highest level. So we were pleased to be there to support them.
And then JJ, I know you've been spending a lot of time in the building with your coaching staff, and just wonder what's that been like watching film from last year, planning for this season, seeing guys come in on a voluntary basis. How has these last couple of months kind of coalesced for you as you enter the season?
Yeah, there's a lot to it. There's sort of a lot of different compartments to your question. Let's say with the coaching staff, the focus primarily has been building out our systems, building out our language, and then as we've done our smaller group workouts and our individual player development, incorporating that language and those systems into those smaller workouts. I would say what we have tried to create is an energy and a vibe in the gym every day. It's like a perfect balance of, I would call it focused joy, if that makes sense. We're grateful every day to be in this gym, staff, the players, but it's focused and it's intentional and it's organized.
Hey guys, a couple. Rob or JJ, can you kind of just walk us through health and availability? Guys like Jerry Vanderbilt, Rui had anything, or an Olympic injury. We know about Christian's surgery. What's going to be what's sort of the status of the roster heading into training camp in terms of availability?
Yeah, I think you brought up a number of players. Gabe Vincent and Rui are both clear for camp, so no issues there. In terms of Vando, this offseason he did have two procedures, one on each of his feet. The procedures were highly successful, and he's on a return to play program that so far has been lockstep and very promising. Led by our new director of performance, Dr. Leroy Sims, and his team. They've been doing a great job, and we have a lot of optimism that when the real games start, he'll be available. Now, between now and then, there's still about a month, and there's a lot of ramp-up steps that need to go well, and so hopefully there won't be setbacks. But so far, very promising, and we're grateful that he has the issues in his feet behind him, and it's just now a matter of getting fully ramped up and ready to be cleared. Christian Wood, on the same knee, had surgery on last season. He did have a separate cleanup surgery that went well, performed by Dr. Chris Jones at UCLA Health. and he'll be reevaluated in 6 weeks and is progressing well.
Jalen?
Jalen's cleared.
There's been a lot of talk this summer about what hasn't changed with the roster and what couldn't change because of, player options and there not being spaces really to augment what you guys already have. How much is on the person sitting next to you to be the change, to take what was here and try to optimize it, and how big of a challenge do you think that is for a first-year head coach?
Yeah, I think JJ and I talk a lot about the roster, and both of us in our partnership have a really strong belief in the 15 players on this team. I think for any team to do well, you have to have good health and good fortune, and those things are variables you can't control. But with those, we have a lot of confidence in these 15 players. I think the inverse of change or overhaul is continuity, and I think continuity can be highly successful in sports. This is a core group that did make it to the Western Conference Finals. We didn't have Gabe Vincent or Vando last year for whole seasons. If you add 2 players like that, there's a delta there. I think there's going to be internal growth. We're going to see increased capacity, increased on-ball stuff from Austin Reeves. I think JJ can talk about that. There's going to be growth from him and Rui and all the guys across the roster. I think there's going to be internal improvements. So we have a high level of confidence in this group, and we're going to lean into the things that we can control and lean into the continuity of this team.
Good to see you both. I got a question for both of you. Rob, just to follow up on the Vando update, can you tell us something about the nature of the procedures and the timing of the procedures?
Yeah, he had them together. So he last year had a lingering sort of bone spur on the back of his foot, and since he was going to go under surgery for the injury that he had last year in the Boston Celtics game, the doctor had a discussion with him. Hey, since you're going to be off your foot for several months, why not get the other thing cleaned up so it doesn't rear its head? So he had both things fixed.
And the timing of that, sometime in the...
Yeah, it was after the season, right after the season.
Right after the season, yeah. Thanks. And JJ, obviously it's going to be history. You'll be the first time coaching a team that has a father and son duo on the roster. What can you tell us about the plan for that moment that, it will be history, the moment that they play a preseason game together and a practice together, but clearly a regular season game is kind of the moment everyone's anticipating. How are you and your coaching staff going about preparing for that moment?
Yeah, we don't have anything planned per se in terms of a commitment to do it this way. We obviously have talked about it as a staff, and we've gotten it into some specifics of what that might look like, but we haven't committed to anything. And obviously there's a discussion to be had once we're all together with Bronny and LeBron too. They should be a part of that discussion as well.
Hey guys, one question for each of you. Rob, Dan kind of touched on it with the roster and the continuity. Big storyline has been the 2 tradable first-round picks that you guys have. So just to be clear, are you open to potentially trading or using those picks to upgrade the roster? And if so, would that only be for like a bigger kind of reshaping the roster type trade, or would something more marginal type of improvement be suffice as well?
Yeah, I think the philosophy that JJ and I are aligned on is we want to build sustainable Lakers excellence. And I think when you talk about moves, you can make a move that backfires. I think every GM has made a trade that they say, maybe that one wasn't ideal. But every lens that we look through has to lead to sustainable Laker excellence. So the direct answer to your question is yes, we would do a trade with both picks if that would lead to sustainable Lakers excellence. We would also use one pick to make a marginal upgrade if we felt like it was the right thing to do. We looked long and hard and did a lot of work at seeing if there were ways to increase the overall roster talent this offseason. And the right move didn't present itself. It's not an excuse to say that we have a different system that is more of a limiting system for trades and moves. And so there's just less of a supply for opportunities, but we will continue to study and scour the marketplace, and if the right move presents itself that leads to long-term Lakers excellence and improving our team this season, we'll pull the trigger.
And then for JJ, you named your starting lineup on the low post yesterday, and the starting lineup that ended the season. What do you like about that group, and what sort of tweaks would you like to see potentially as you work through training camp in the preseason?
Tweaks to that lineup?
Yeah, just in terms of like system. In terms of like system.
Oh,
or
yeah,
identity.
okay, I get it. I like the fact that in the games they played together last year, they were 23-10 with essentially the equivalent of the top 5 defense. I like the size a lot, particularly that front line with Rui and LeBron and AD. And Austin is I would say a bigger or slightly above average size 2 guard. So I like the size of that group. I like the versatility, having 3 guys who can play with the ball in their hands. I brought up the systems, and you did as well. Some of our systems will require players to be off the ball, and that doesn't mean standing around off the ball. It means being involved in screening actions. And so far in some of the smaller settings, we've done that. Like we've kind of, like AR is a great example. We talked very early when I got the job. He spent some time with us in Vegas, and I told him, I said, to this point in your career, you've played one way, and you've got a great skill set, and it's this circle. All we're doing, we're not taking anything out of that circle. We're just adding to that circle. We're making the circle a little bit bigger. We're making your bag a little bit bigger, making you a little bit more hard to guard, making you a little more dynamic. I think that's what we're trying to do for all players in our program, not just the starting 5.
Rob, JJ, appreciate the time. Got one for both of you guys. First, Rob, you guys came to agreement with Max Christie on a long-term deal pretty early in the free agency process. What did you see over his first couple of seasons that made you guys comfortable giving him that contract, and what was the expectations for him this season after being in and out of the rotation his first couple of years?
A lot of it had to do with JJ's vision for how this team's going to play. Some of the things he's talked about, which are supported by sort of our data science team and the coaches upstairs have been vigorously going through, is making adjustments to things like corner crashing and trying to win the extra possession game. I think Max Christie is sort of the prototype player of a 3-and-D wing that can defend, pick up with pressure full court, which is another thing JJ's talked about in his system. He can make corner threes, I think, at a high clip, and he's very long and athletic, and so I think he will be a guy that's going to help us win the extra possession game by crashing. So just the way he played, the way he's built, really aligned with JJ's philosophy. And then just his character. He's in the gym every day. He is probably one of the hardest workers on our team, and so those are things we're going to lean into when we choose people that are going to be part of our program.
I would add to that, I think to win now in today's NBA, you need 7 or 8 players that really impact winning, and that doesn't mean 7 or 8 superstars that need the ball in their hands. Max Christie is going to be a guy in his career who has a high level of impact winning for a lot of those reasons that Rob talked about, and he's been fully bought in to all of the player development stuff. Jalen Hood-Shapiro has been fully bought in. Like, these guys have gotten better significantly over the last 2 months, so we're really excited to see them compete in training camp and in the preseason.
And JJ, for you, you mentioned back in July that you went to hire director of player development, brought in Ty Abbott. Like, what exactly, I guess, are his responsibilities, his role, I guess, integrating him between the NBA team, the G League team? Just, what's that look like for him?
Yeah. You guys want to talk about systems? Let's talk about systems. We have 3 player development pods, and all coaches have players within those pods that they're responsible for. So it's not just Ty that's in charge of player development. When we hired Zach Guthrie to be our G League coach, that was a big thing that we talked about, was player development, having synergy and integration between our two teams, and sort of Zach being an extension of our coaching staff. So some of that responsibility is communication, organization. Bo Levesque, who came from the Los Angeles Clippers in a player development role, has also had a big impact this summer. Greg St. Jean as well, Lindsey Harding. The four of them have done a lot on the player development side, and will continue to do so because we're asking a lot of all of our coaches. We talked about all of us just being Swiss Army knives and doing a bunch of different things while having defined roles.
Hi Rob, hi JJ. This question is for JJ. LeBron has talked a little bit about, what he's going to have to navigate, being the first father-son duo. Specifically, he doesn't want Bronny calling him dad, stuff like that on the court. I'm curious from the coach's perspective, ahead of this historical moment, what do you see as some of the greatest challenges of having both a father and a son on the same team, especially when your father is LeBron James?
A challenge for me or a challenge for Bronny? Or a challenge for LeBron? I'm sorry, I wanted to...
Challenge for you in
Challenge for me.
navigating all of that.
I don't look at it as a challenge that's unique from any other challenge of coaching a player or coaching a relationship. Bronny, I feel very fortunate that I get to coach him because he's young and he's hungry and he's got a lot of inherent skill sets that we can really mold into a really good NBA player. On top of that, he's a fantastic kid. He's extremely coachable. He's got the right spirit and energy every single day. So yeah, I hate saying this because it's you asking the question, but it's not something I've really thought of as a challenge, if that makes sense.
The challenge.
That's a callback, by the way, just so you guys know, that's a callback.
Maybe the challenge is on Bronny when, like in our pickup game, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, he got switched on to LeBron, and LeBron took him baseline and up and under off the glass, and the words exchanged afterwards were probably more challenging than anything else.
Guys, to your left, Crystal Rich, KTLA. JJ, starting with you, since joining the Lakers, I'm sure this will change throughout the season, but what has your relationship been like with LeBron in terms of growth and evolution from a former competitor to podcast partner to now player coach?
Yeah, I think it's at the early stages of that relationship, particularly because LeBron was doing USA basketball for most of the summer, and then I'm not exactly sure where he went, but he gave himself a nice vacation. But he's been back in the gym the last 2 weeks, and I think the biggest thing is just communication on all levels. I was constantly texting him and AD once they finished up in Paris. As we sort of built out our languages, we just were sending them our potential installs of offensive sets and our languages defensively and offensively, talking through things with him on the court since he's been here. So I think the biggest thing is just the communication that we already inherently have. That's just continued to grow.
Do those group chats feel the same, or do they feel, a little bit different now that you're coach?
I feel like a coach, if that's what you're asking. I mean, I feel like a coach, but I would say the manner in which we communicate is no different.
And Rob, you said that you believe in this roster as is, but if the opportunity presents itself that works well for this organization long term, you would pull the trigger. How far, if not now, is this organization away, or this roster away from contending for a title?
Yeah, I think that's really a question that I think we'll have a better sense on after 30 games, but we believe in this group. And the 15 guys that play the games are going to control the wins and losses with their effort, with how hard we play, with the pride we play with how organized and detail-oriented we are. And I can tell you, we can't guarantee wins and losses, but we can guarantee that that's going on with these guys. So the confidence and belief level is high. But the work is never done. And so we'll continue to look for ways, if we can, to upgrade the roster. That's part of our jobs and something we always have an open eye to doing. But if we have good health and good fortune, I really like our chances.
Hi, Rob and JJ, good to see you. JJ, with LeBron, how do you hope to juggle his workload given the stage he's at in his career, also recognizing that he's obviously still playing at such an elite level?
I hope to juggle it well.
Yeah.
I hope to juggle it well.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
How do you balance those two things?
Yeah. I think it just goes again back to the communication. And LeBron, myself, Mike, Leroy, we've already sort of talked through what October will look like for him as we ramp up. I think everyone in this building is cognizant of the fact that he's almost 40. But you know, when we've watched the pickup games, you know, he's going full tilt. He's on the court, he's going. You know, so in some ways, I think sometimes we maybe have to save him from himself, and whether that's in training camp, practices throughout the season. But we'll be mindful and thoughtful, and we have a process for all of that as well.
Eric Pincus, Bleacher Report. How you all doing? Thank you for having us. JJ, I asked a variation of this question last year. Do you, as a franchise, have a traditional center on the roster? And if not, why is that not necessary, or is it necessary?
When you say traditional center, what does that mean?
A size center. Brooke Lopez, who, without having.
Is Brooke Lopez a traditional center though? In the traditional sense, not many centers were shooting 35-footers.
Sure, but
Yeah.
it's more of the size.
More of the size.
More of the size.
I think we have not only one of the best players in the world, but one of the most unique players in the world in Anthony Davis, because there's very few people that can do the things that he can do at his size, just in terms of his ball handling, his skill level offensively, and certainly the fact that he's one of the best defensive players in the world. I would also say, I don't know, I don't view Nikola Jokic as like a traditional center. I don't know how many traditionals. I think back to the basket, that's just not the modern NBA. I think we have like a gift that we have Anthony Davis. It's not a deterrent that we don't have a 7'2", 300-pound player. I'm not sure that it's how we want to play anyways.
Behind him. In case
Yeah.
he's on the bench or out
Yeah.
for a game or two.
Well, that's where you have a package for the different lineups that goes back to organization. We're not going to ask Jackson Hayes or Christian Wood when he's healthy to play the same way that Anthony Davis does. So we'll manage.
JJ, you said you feel like a coach. You've used the words focus, joy, and I'm just curious, in the early goings here, what have you learned about JJ Redick's coaching style?
Rob was very kind to me over this past weekend. He, as you guys know, my family, we just moved back out here, and it was very sudden for them, and it's been an adjustment for everyone. And my oldest, of course, he played 2 years of travel basketball. He had real friendships, and he lived across the street in Brooklyn from his best friend. They had a standing Tuesday play date. They played all the sports together, flag football, basketball, etc. And at times it's been tough for him. And so I asked Rob, I said, Rob, is it okay if me and the Mini Banshees, it's our video room, the Mini Banshees, if we host his two travel teams? He's playing same travel team, but different age groups. So he plays up sometimes, plays down other times. Can we host about 20 kids and the parents on Saturday practice? Rob was like, great, got it cleared with Lisa in the building, and signed the waivers. My coaches put the kids through a great practice. I happened to be at a station when we were doing offensive breakdowns, and may have overcoached a little bit. and Cal, one of our coaching associates, after we finished up the drill, he came over to me and he said, you know you're a psycho, right? I was like, yes, I'm well aware. So if anything, I've just reinforced the fact that there's something just ticking a little bit wrong. But honestly, the staff, and I said this recently, I think it was to Spectrum, or maybe internally, but I had a goal, and Rob and I had a goal of hiring a really diverse coaching staff in terms of experience and skill sets, and we accomplished that. But the one thing that was like a non-negotiable was that everyone we hired was a sicko, a basketball sicko, and we've done that. And like our coaching meet, like, you want to feel alive and you love basketball, come to one of our coaches meetings. You want to feel alive and you love basketball, come be in the gym when these guys are in here. It's been awesome.
Thanks for the invite. We'll take you up on it.
It was more of a metaphorical invite.
No, thank you. Rob, you guys signed Christian Coloco to a two-way deal. Has he been cleared yet through the return to play protocol? Will he be able to participate at the start of training camp?
Yeah, in terms of our center depth that Eric flagged, I think in addition to Jackson Hayes, Christian Wood, we do have two guys on two-way that are play the center position, and Colin Castleton, and we signed Christian Coloco. We have optimism. We did a deep dive with our medical staff, and Dr. Vigil, Dr. Jones, Dr. Sims, and have a lot of optimism and hope. He's still with the panel, and part of that is just logistics that have to happen. But we think that'll happen sooner than later, and whatever the decision of the league is, we'll respect. But again, we have a lot of optimism, and if he's cleared, 7'5" wingspan, 7'1", I think we saw a lot of promise in him when we scouted him when he was at Arizona. Was almost a first-round pick. So to get a player like that we can bring along and develop and may even impact games this year when he gets cleared is something we're really excited about.
JJ, last one for you. We haven't really talked about D'Lo at all today. Led the team in three-point attempts. I know that's a thing that you'd like to see the team's number rise. How does he fit into kind of your vision for the style of basketball this team is going to play this season?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say throughout the summer, he was probably the guy that I talked to the most of anyone on the roster. We had a number of conversations during free agency and throughout July and August, and he's going to have a major role on this team. I think the thing that D'Lo and I have talked about a lot is just like, let's put you in a position to have a career year. His mindset, his energy, the talk that he's brought, the leadership that he's brought when he's been in the building has been excellent. So I'm thrilled to be coaching D'Lo this season. He's in a great place right now heading into training camp.
JJ, just curious your balance, first year as a head coach in the NBA, and how much leeway do you give yourself knowing that you don't know everything, and it's going to take time and experience to obviously accomplish what you're hoping for, but at the same time you're also coaching a franchise that always has championship aspirations and expectations?
Yeah, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I always have. That's not going to change. I think as I've gotten older, I've learned to give myself a little bit of grace. So I think that mentality is going to serve me well in this job, particularly in the first year. There's a lot of things I don't know. And I feel very fortunate to have the coaching staff that I do have I've learned a lot from them already, and not just how to do this job, but about basketball. That's kind of the environment we wanted to create with our staff, and we've done that. But yeah, I think the word is grace, to be honest with you, and it's something that I think applies to me individually, but as a group, I think you have to have grace with each other as well. There's 82 games, hopefully a long playoff run. No one is going to be perfect in this thing. That's just the nature of this sport and this business, and that's okay. That doesn't mean we're not going to hold each other accountable. Doesn't mean I'm not going to hold myself accountable. But the word I like is grace.
Hi, I have a question to both of you. First of all, Coach Redick, during the Olympics, Rui Hachimura's role was leading the Japanese national team. What did you think of his performance as a leader? And Mr. Pelinka, will there be any differences in Hachimura's role on the team this season? If so, what the differences be?
I can answer the second question too, because that's not a Rob question. No, I thought Rui was fantastic, particularly in the lead-up games, the exhibition games going to the Olympics, and then also had a couple of really good games in the Olympics. In terms of his role, I think that's something that we will define with him, and we will also be open-minded to that evolving. Rob brought up the corner crashing, because when he's not posting up or not playing out of closeouts, or not screening, Rui is an excellent shooter. We want him shooting corner threes, so he's already going to be in the spot to corner crash. So we're going to try to ramp up his offensive rebounding. We're going to ask a lot of him defensively, particularly with the bigger wings. I think if you look at some of the advanced stuff from last season, when he gets the ball in the post against a mismatch, that's a good option for us. When he's attacking a closeout, that's a good option. When he's playing out of screening action as a roller and getting into the pocket, it's great for us. So he'll have a big role, and we're going to ask him to do a lot.
Yeah, JJ, wondered when you looked at last year's team defensively, and of course the guys that are still here, and thinking that Vincent and Vanderbilt being out, in theory, would have been two of the better perimeter defensive options. How can that impact things? How can that help somebody like AD with all the work that he has to do on the back line? And do you see some of that start to come together? In theory, obviously.
Yeah, in theory. I mean, we'll find out next week if what we sort of believe of building a team defense is the right thing. We obviously need to increase our physicality. We need to be a better team in terms of contesting shots. We were in the bottom third of the league last year in that. I think a big thing for us in sort of the player development work that we've done defensively is we've talked a lot about having elite presentation and trying to create marginal indecision. That could be in a shift, that could be with low man help, that could be with the big up to touch and drop. The other point I would make is, and Rob, answered the question earlier about him, I think Max Christie has a real chance to be a high-level impact player on that end as well. And having him confident and consistently in the rotation, along with a healthy Vando and Gabe, I think will be great for our defense.